Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, the world's most exciting podcast, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, New York Times best-selling author and National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Michael Savage.
And I'm a fan of disruptors, people who make change.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Let me begin by saying this is probably going to be, in time, in history, I'm talking about real history, not the phony historians. I am talking about real history will probably see this for what it is, and that is perhaps the greatest political blunder in United States history. Why do I say that? Not because Trump is a perfect man, but because Pelosi and Schumer are totally imperfect politicians. Pelosi should be impeached and thrown out of the House of Representatives for having instigated riots over the years. Or how about hateful Maxine Waters telling mobs to attack Trump voters? Quote, wherever you find them, get in their face.
Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Why is that jackal not thrown out of Congress? Why? Because they're stupid and evil. It's as simple as that. And I am saying today that the dim-witted Dems have frankly impeached themselves with this Stalinist show trial. That's my honest opinion. It's not just for effect. Okay? The coffee and news of the day has become a very popular feature of this podcast. And I want to thank you for enjoying it. I think something is wrong with the impeachment defense. Having said that, one of Trump's impeachment lawyers, Michael Van Der Veen, called Donald Trump an effing crook and sued him last year, arguing the president was trying to suppress mail-in voting. Now, why would Trump have hired a guy who called him a crook? I think it's a setup again, and he's an enemy within. Seems to me there's already some kind of an enemy within the entire defense team, which is a disaster, right? The impeachment trial is coming at a time when the nation is more sharply divided than since the Civil War. This is the last thing the nation needs right now. The list of people on this impeachment team are far from sterling characters themselves. Does the name Eric Swalwell ring a bell? Democrat from China? California. Implicated in a scandal involving a suspected Chinese spy from 2011 to 2015. And Raskin pushed for a first impeachment because he claimed Trump totally violated his oath of office by betraying the national security of the country and our election by trying to entice a foreign government to get involved in our campaign, all proven to be totally false. Totally and absolutely false. That's Raskin. What else is in the news that's worth your attention? Ken Starr. He knows some things about impeachment. Who is Ken Starr? Ken Starr is a smart man. Ken Starr says impeaching Trump in his post-presidency is, quote, a flagrant violation of the Constitution. No authority whatsoever is what he says. That's Ken Starr. He knows more than the average person on Twitter. I can guarantee you that. He certainly knows more than Nancy Pelosi. Now, what about the people themselves? Most of the people polled by Rasmussen said that most people will not watch it, and they don't expect the Senate to convict him. So why are they doing this? Because they're desiring to have a Stalinist show trial. It's a disaster. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, Biden has busted our borders open by bringing in hundreds of thousands that could be infected with COVID-19 and other illnesses. Why would they put our Border Patrol at risk of infection like this? Why? Because they can. Because they can. That's what they do. They're trying to destroy the Border Patrol by getting them sick with COVID. It's absolutely unheard of what the Democrats are actually doing while conducting the Stalinist show trial.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.
All right, I'm getting ready to do my taxes. It's always painful, and I wish I had more deductions. You know, if I had a car I wasn't using that was sitting in my driveway, taking up space, that I was paying insurance on, I would donate it to Cars for Kids. Why? Because that way I'd get a tax deduction and be doing something good. Now, here's why I would do it. Yes, donating your car is tax deductible. Cars for Kids works hard to sell your car for the best price, which means more funds for their charity and a bigger tax deduction for you. Your car donation is fast and free. It's usually picked up within 24 hours and often even the same day. And Cars for Kids will take your car even if it's not running. Cars for Kids makes the process of donating your car quick and easy. It takes about 2 minutes. They handle all the details, all the paperwork. All you need to do is schedule a pickup and sign the title. That's if you have one. And listen, as a special thank you for donating your car, Cars for Kids gives you a vacation voucher good for a 3-day and 2-night hotel stay. It's a great organization. Donating your car to them is a great idea. It makes you feel good, and it does good. Please, please donate your car and claim your tax deduction today. It's simple. Go to carsforkids.org/SavageNation. You'll get professional service, a convenient pickup, a maximum tax deduction, a vacation voucher, and you'll be doing good. That's Cars with a K, K-A-R-S, the number 4, KIDS.org/SavageNation. carsforkids.org/SavageNation. Do some good and do yourself some good. Go to carsforkids.org. carsforkids.org/SavageNation. So we're continuing with Coffee and News of the Day from Michael Savage on this podcast, where we're talking about the phony impeachment trial. I call it the phony divisive impeachment show trial. This is right out of Stalin's Russia, a show trial. And this follows my last podcast, which is Can You Be Happy in a Sad World, which struck a real raw nerve in America. Somehow a lot of people really liked that one to get away from politics. Unfortunately, today I have to do politics because all anyone is talking about is the phony divisive impeachment show trial. Most people understand that this is not going to be leading to a conviction in the Senate. They understand this. So why are the Democrats doing this? Why did they blunder so grandly? Because I call it possibly the greatest blunder. It may be looked upon as one of the greatest blunders in American political history by Pelosi and Schumer. They're not stupid people. Why would they do this if they know it's a blunder? Why? When they themselves know that Pelosi could be impeached for having instigated riots over the years, calling herself and telling listeners that people and audiences to be disruptors. Or Maxine Waters, another jackal, telling mobs to attack Trump supporters, quote, wherever you find them. This phony impeachment show trial will be seen as one of the greatest political blunders in U.S. history, is my opinion. But right now, my opinion doesn't matter that much. What matters is this poor country of ours in the hands of these gangsters, Schumer and Pelosi. I call them gangsters because they're nothing better than gangsters. There is a picture of them that is actually chilling, where you see the true face of evil. If you look at them, the eyes, they look like demons. But that's not going to get us anywhere. What we have to do is understand this nation is more divided today than it's been since the Civil War. Maybe they want a civil war. Maybe that's what they want. Flood the country with sick people coming over the border and then destroy the country totally. So what's in the news? A lot of things are in the news. You ready? Here we go. California Marine Base missing 10 pounds of C4 explosives. It seems that everything's coming apart. Sign language interpreter fires back after she's canceled and humiliated for being a MAGA supporter by the Biden administration. Listen to this. Here is a woman, a former White House sign language interpreter, Heather Mishaw, has been canceled because she was a Trump supporter. Can you believe this? She has been a freelance sign language interpreter for both the Trump and Biden administrations. But after Time magazine, a left-wing rag, published an article on her personal politics, this poor mother of four has not been offered a return engagement by the Biden White House. The not-so-subtle title of the hit piece in the verminous Time magazine says, quote, President Biden's first White House sign language interpreter has ties to the far right, unquote. Now she's being harassed and threatened. Can you believe what's going on in this country? Do you believe you're living in a land of liberty for translating for deaf people and voting for Donald Trump? Can you believe that you're living in a nation that is this far down the tubes of a civil war? Meanwhile, what's going on with the phony, divisive impeachment? We don't know. We don't know whether these quislings in the Republican Party could turn on him. We don't know. It could happen yet because there are top Republicans who can vote against Trump. We just don't know. Ted Cruz says the Trump impeachment trial is doomed to failure. We know it's a foregone conclusion in many cases that the Senate won't vote against him. At least that's what we believe. But we don't know. We just don't know. It's not really about Donald Trump anymore. It's about America and the Constitution and about the gangsters that are running the Democrat Party of today. What else is in the news? Oh, maybe I need another cup of coffee before going to the next site. How about COVID? Should we talk about COVID? The WHO says that they're investigating how the virus spread in Wuhan. And they say that the actual investigation of Wuhan is not being done by WHO, but by Chinese authorities. In other words, you're never going to get to the truth. So now there's some confusion about, was it just an accidental release or was it a purposeful release? We don't know and will never know, given that WHO is a stooge of the Chinese government. Wikipedia Foundation has approved a leftist code of conduct. Wikipedia is filled with the worst people in the history of encyclopedias. I've never seen anything like it. And so, it's very depressing. What about Biden himself? How about his corrupt family? How about all the family members cashing in on his presidency? Am I violating some code of conduct by asking the questions? I don't think so. Boeing Aircraft, one of the greatest companies in the world, is going to outsource 600 jobs while expanding production in India. Can you believe this is right after Biden takes over? They're going to send 600 jobs to India and fire 600 Americans. Biden's Office of Management and Budget nominee, Neera Tanden, took millions from Wall Street and big tech. Are you shocked at the corruption? Are you telling me you're shocked at the corruption of the Biden administration while telling me about Trump being the most corrupt man in history? What else is in the news? I don't know. I don't even know if I want to continue this. I may go back to God, faith, and reason. I need God, faith, and reason right now. I need God, faith, and reason more than I need reading coffee and news of the day. I'm going to tell you something funny about God, faith, and reason in the middle of all of this. I've sort of lost my faith again. Not because of politics, because of 100 different reasons. Things are going south in my life. Giving Teddy up to Irene, my dog, to take care of him last week just slayed me. And I don't know. It's not like I've not lost a dog before, and he's still living. But this glimpse into meaninglessness, and my feeling that nothing really matters anymore, this negativism, this nihilism. So, for some reason, I spoke with a mystic who I know. I've been out of touch with this person for a while. And this mystic said to me that I've lost touch with God, and that's all she sees in trying to pick up on my energy. I know you say, energy. I lost touch with God. So I did something unusual. I've been preaching my political faith of Borders, Language, and Culture to millions of people over 25 years. But what about my own religious faith? And what about my ideas about the Judeo-Christian foundation of the American culture that I fought so long to preserve? What I did was, when I heard that, I was very cynical. I said, it doesn't really matter, right? What I did was I went back into my own religious beliefs. There's a ritual that Jewish people believe in that I've never really had much faith in. And it seems so medieval, almost ancient, and almost laughable to the people on the outside that I said, I don't know. But, you know, I don't know how I drifted into this right now, and I'll get back to coffee and news of the day in a minute. I told you that many, many decades ago, when my life had reached a point of emptiness and nihilism and futility, I went out on my deck. Oh, man, I can remember the day to this day. And I put on what are known as tefillin, which are phylacteries that you wrap around your head and your arm. I don't want to go into that right now. Maybe I'll do it another day on religion. It's like, what the heck? You know, I don't believe in this stuff. It seems so ridiculous to see old Jewish guys with leather straps and a box on their head and a box in their arm. I don't even know what it means. Well, what it means is interesting. So I looked it up again. I know this isn't news and coffee of the day. It's a simple prayer. And what it is, Deuteronomy 6:8 says, you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes. Those of you who are Christians, you shall bind them as a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for a reminder between your eyes. Deuteronomy 6:8, the Old Testament. And what the religious teach us is that we have a brain, and it is in one world. We have a heart that's in another world. And your hands often wind up involved doing something foreign to both your brain and your heart. Three diverse machines operating differently. So to the religious Jew, you put on these leather bindings called tefillin. First thing in the morning, before you do anything else, you connect your head, your heart, and your hand with these leather cables to make them all work as one. And work as one for what? One intent. A dedicated service of the Almighty. So when you go out into the world, all your actions will find harmony in a single coordinated purpose, which is to dedicate your service to God. And so what are in these little black boxes that the religious Jews that you think are crazy put on their head and their arm? You look at them and say, who knows, what is that garbage? Inside these black leather boxes are Hebrew parchment scrolls. And a set includes two tefillin, one for the head and one for the arm. And that's it. So you strap one to your head, the other to your arm. You do it in the morning before your prayers. And you put one on your arm, you put one on your head, and then you recite a blessing. The blessing is simple. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, commanded us to put on tefillin. Really, that's what it comes down to. And so what's the point of this? Is it magical? Is it mystical? Is it illogical? I don't know. God himself commanded that tefillin contain 4 biblical passages which mention his unity in the Exodus from Egypt. Why? So that we, the people, can remember the miracles and wonders that he performed for us, demonstrating that God has power and dominion over all of us. Dominion, it's an interesting word. Dominion voting machines. But no, it's not voting machines. It's that God has dominion over all of us. And so the tefillin, to end this up, is supposed to inspire us to serve God in a state of inspiration. It's that simple. So I started to do this just the other day again, because I will be honest with you, the cynicism I am seeing, it's almost heartbreaking to see what's going on in this wonderful country, to see it being broken by these evil Democrats. Let's say you hate Trump. He's out of office. He's not the president. He's gone. You put the stooge in. That's not good enough for you? You're supposed to be the party of compassion, the party of peace, the party of love, the party of unity. It's as though you have earwax on your soul, earwax in your eyes, earwax in your nose, earwax in your ears. How in the world can you people look at yourselves in the mirror? You won the election. Some would say you stole the election, but you won the election. You put this evil team in power who's ruling by fiat, not through the vote. And what do? The minute you get power, you try to divide the nation even further. You try to smash it over your knee. You disperse the hatred that is seen in the worst countries on the planet. Are you listening to this? This is Michael Savage with the Savage Nation podcast, taking a breather so I can have another sip of coffee.
The Savage Nation. It's Savage on demand.
I love CryoFreeze. Now, look, there are tons of pain relief CBD products out there. As you know, I don't use marijuana. I'll be very clear. I will not use THC. So you say, well, why are you pushing the CBD product? Hey, it works. I unfortunately hurt my back recently, and I'm telling you this stuff works. It's astounding, or I wouldn't promote it. I wouldn't tell you about it. Chronic pain is the worst. It's more than a feeling of discomfort. It can destroy your whole life. You probably have some type of pain that prevents you from relaxing and sleeping, stops you from exercising. Maybe it's been for a few weeks, and no matter what you try, it hasn't worked. Well, I can relate to that. I don't know how I hurt my back. I really don't remember what happened. I've had good back my whole life, and all of a sudden, luckily, I had CryoFreeze. It's a roll-on. It's not sticky. It's not gooey. It has a beautiful scent, and it works. That's the beautiful part. It's a non-prescription, triple-action pain relief roll-on, and they specially formulated it to block pain receptors, reduce inflammation, improve muscle and joint flexibility. It's 100% natural. It's CBD-powered. It works its magic within 10 minutes. I promise you, it worked for me. And relief lasts up to 8 hours, much longer than over-the-counter products out there. Here's the good news. Not only does CryoFreeze work, Omax Health is offering my listeners 20% off a full bottle of CryoFreeze CBD pain relief roll-on. This discount also applies towards any product on their entire site. Just go to omaxhealth.com, enter code SAVAGE. You're going to get 20% off CryoFreeze and anything on their site. As you know, I have a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley. I looked into the science of CryoFreeze CBD roll-on compared to BioFreeze, Icy Hot, and Bengay. I'm going to tell you, CryoFreeze beats them hands down. It has 8.5% menthol. It has 150 milligrams of CBD. The others have 0. It has 10 pain relief ingredients. It elevates pain relief endocannabinoids. It adds joint support. It's all natural. It's anti-inflammatory. It beats the competitors hands down. I'm telling you, this product is the real deal. So go to omaxhealth.com, enter code SAVAGE to get 20% off on this product and anything on their site. Let me go back again to the beginning. I would not promote this product if it didn't work. CryoFreeze roll-on pain relief works. It is amazing. It's helped me. It's going to help you. Just go to omaxhealth.com, enter code SAVAGE. You're going to get 20% off CryoFreeze and anything on their site. I don't mean to distract us. I mean, I'm talking about the phony, divisive impeachment show trial today, and I all of a sudden lurched into my own religious beliefs. You know why? Because I'm very upset by what's going on in my country. Because they're killing the republic by doing this. This sham impeachment proceeding will not punish Trump. It will punish this nation. That's what Pelosi and Schumer, these small-minded, evil people are doing to this country. You know, but since I was talking about an ancient religious practice and belief, I want to go back to the impeachment, the fake impeachment trial, which is totally unnecessary right now. An interesting article came out by Sam Faddis, Faddis, in AND magazine, A-N-D magazine. It's entitled Killing the Republic, Trump is Tiberius. Tiberius was a Roman politician in the 2nd century BC. Gracchus was a member of the Populares, a faction that sided with the plebeian, the common people, against the conservative aristocratic patricians who had traditionally held power in Rome, he writes. And I could read you the whole article. Maybe I'll just put it on michaelsavage.com. Tiberius Gracchus put out reforms to break up the giant estates and redistribute the land to average Roman people. He was hated by the aristocrats. And they made no secret of what they were going to do to him, and he made no secret of his intention to destroy their power. He was aggressive. He was loud. He threatened the entire power structure of those who believed the republic belonged to them, meaning the aristocrats who owned the country, meaning the swamp. In 132 BC, Tiberius proposed to run for re-election to the office of tribune. In doing so, he looked like he was violating a tradition that barred an office holder from seeking re-election, right? The Roman Senate, which was the epicenter of the power of the oligarchs, became terrified at the idea that Tiberius would run again and that the reforms he proposed might fundamentally change Rome and bring to an end their control over Rome's government and society. This is all according to this article. They decided they had to destroy Tiberius by any means necessary. What did they do? On the pretext that Tiberius intended to make himself king, he was attacked in a public marketplace and beaten to death by a mob led by Roman senators and their allies. And he's quoting now. Tiberius tried to save himself by flight. As he was running, he was stopped by one who caught hold of him by the gown, but he threw it off and fled in his undergarment only. And stumbling over those who before had been knocked down, as he was endeavoring to get up again, Publius Saturius, a tribune, one of his colleagues, was observed to give him the first fatal stroke. One of his colleagues, you hear this? Another Brutus. By hitting him upon the head with the foot of a stool. The second blow by Lucius Rufus, and the rest there fell upon 300 killed by clubs and staves, only none by an iron weapon. So they beat him to death. Tiberius was dead, and also were many of his followers. But as we read in this article, so too was the Roman Republic, dead from what they had done to Tiberius for daring to threaten the establishment. He writes it would take a century for Julius Caesar to declare himself dictator for life, but already the die had been cast. Laws and traditions have been destroyed and would never again be resurrected. The oligarchs of the time, the Schumers, the Pelosi's of the time who killed Tiberius, certainly didn't want to be called murderers. What did they say? They claimed they were defending Rome against a demagogue and saving the Republic from the mob. But no, all they were doing was preserving their own power. But this time we're watching another assassination. This one of Donald Trump. Men and women calling themselves Democrats are not carrying clubs, but they're just exactly the same. Trump did not incite the mob to storm the Capitol. We know that. They're saying they're trying to prove it. If they're trying to prove it, it means it's clear he didn't do it, because he can't even defend himself. He did not lead the insurrection. He did not advocate violence. But he did something much worse to Pelosi and to Schumer and to Wall Street. He threatened the ruling class of America. For the first time, for a long time, maybe the first great populist movement in this country since Theodore Roosevelt, average Americans stood up and voted for Trump and demanded a fundamental change in the policies of the nation. They said they would no longer stand by while people became trillionaires, Amazon, Apple. I'm afraid to even mention the names. Do something for America, they said. They were tired of seeing a one-sided view created by corporate America. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, you name it, it's all the same, Marxist intelligentsia. The people said they didn't want to send their sons and their husbands to fight endless wars that did nothing to enhance American national security, but simply fed a giant military-industrial complex. That's what they said. And remember, Trump was a president of peace. He didn't get us into more foreign entanglements. He got us into fewer. He was not as effective as he wanted to be, but he tried. He did try to drain the swamp. He did try to make government more responsive. But what happened? They killed him. Defeating him at the polls was not enough for Pelosi and Schumer. They have to prove that they have absolute power. They have to show that no one else must ever stand up again to those who believe that they are the country and that we, the people, should sit down and shut our mouths and pay our taxes and take our vaccinations. Pelosi and Schumer may not get the end that they wish by killing Trump. Perhaps they're just trying to kill the Republic. This is the Savage Nation podcast on a very, very sad day indeed.
The Savage Nation. It's savage, uncut, unfiltered, and raw.
Support for this podcast comes from Root Insurance. With Root Insurance, you have the power to control your own rates, all from an app. Root is a new type of car insurance that looks deeper than other insurers by using the sensors in your smartphone. Here's how it works. Just download the Root app, get on the road, and we'll take care of the rest. The app measures your driving behavior, things like braking, turning, and how much you drive. And you get a custom rate based primarily on your driving. The better you drive, the better your rate. Which means good drivers could save hundreds. And this puts the power back where it belongs, in your hands. It's also easy to customize. The app walks you through each step so you know exactly what you're getting and get exactly what you need. It's car insurance, made for you. Because good drivers deserve better rates, a better experience, and more control. Download the Root app today and see how easy car insurance can be. Disclaimers may apply. See joinroot.com for details.
So going from comparing what they're doing to Trump to what they did to Tiberius for having taken on the corrupt establishment in Roman times, and mentioning the corrupt media that we have, there's no better example of the corrupt media than Anderson Cooper. He is an absolute empty suit, anti-American piece of trash, in my opinion. Do you know what he just did on CNN? He compared the Capitol Hill riot to 800,000 people murdered in the Rwandan genocide. Now, if you tell me this man belongs on television, I'd like to know why you would say a thing like that.
The idea of otherizing people is something I think we saw a lot of over the last 4 years. I mean, it's something we've seen a lot over the last decades, but it's so easy to otherize people, to make people other than American, other than patriotic, other than human, and we've seen it in Bosnia, we've seen it in Rwanda, where radio was telling people, Hutus were telling the radio listeners that Tutsi were cockroaches, for, getting them ginned up for genocide.
Comparing the riot to 800,000 murdered in the Rwandan genocide. Then we have a former Trump advisor who's a very brilliant guy, Jason Miller, saying by the Democrats' logic, we could impeach George Washington.
Going by the Democrats' logic, we could even go and impeach a president who has passed away. We could impeach a president who's been out of office with no intention of ever running again. I mean, look, I wouldn't run it by any of the Democrats to stop it trying to impeach, whether it be George Washington or George W. Bush. Yeah. I mean, at this point, the Democrats just really show no limit to the lengths that they'll go to be vindictive here.
Then we have the fool, the hysterical Brzezinski. Oh, don't get me started on her father, Brzezinski. She's the one married to that Morning Joe guy. She says you're not a patriot if you don't support impeaching Trump.
Why these people were there desecrating the people's house, ruining things, hurting people, murdering people, maiming people, and using the American flag as a weapon. They were doing it for Trump. And the frustrating thing here is that this has to be explained explicitly to Republicans, and they turn away. They can't make this math themselves. Yeah, it's not stupidity. I'm sorry, it's something way worse. This is evil. If you can't see what happened here, look in the mirror, because there's a big problem with your moral core, and you're not a patriot if you can't see what happened here and stand on the right side of history.
What would she know about patriotism coming from that father of hers? Lindsey Graham says that Democrats have declared war on the presidency.
What Democrats have done is basically declared war on the presidency itself. The impeachment in the House took place without a hearing, without one witness being called, and without a lawyer for the President of the United States. You can't get a traffic ticket based on the procedures they used to impeach President Trump. And we're also impeaching a man who's out of office. When you combine a snap impeachment with an impeachment of a president who's out of office, you're going to destroy the presidency itself. I know you hate Trump, but please pull back before we set in motion the destruction of the presidency by never-ending impeachments based on lack of due process.
No, he's wrong. They've declared war on the United States of America. But let's go back a minute, if you don't mind. Here is a montage of the Democrats and the media, which is one and the same, ignoring all the riots over the summer and praising the vermin in Antifa and BLM who are burning and looting across America.
This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
That ain't a riot, what we're seeing right now in Minneapolis.
They are strictly principled anti-fascists, and they've taken a principled stand to stand against white supremacists and white nationalists wherever they may show up.
I argue to you tonight, all punches are not equal morally.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism, which is what they were there fighting. Listen, there's, no organization is perfect. There was some violence.
Any reasonable person would say we shouldn't be destroying other people's property, but these are not reasonable times.
But thank goodness for the looters, man.
I don't care that much about statues.
Shouldn't that be done by a commission or the city council, not a mob in the middle of the night throwing it into the harbor?
People will do what they do.
You're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Do not get it twisted and think that, this is something that has never happened before, and then this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
People get mad and people get sick of it. People are risking COVID to explain to this country that we're fed up.
Most of the major movements in American history have started at the grassroots level and at some point have turned into direct conflict with American government. So remember your history before you judge your present.
The worst people in America defending Antifa: Don Lemoniski, Chris Cuomo, Frito, Joy Reedless, and Nancy Pelosi, defending Antifa for burning and looting. Finally, today, I want you to listen to the Trump lawyer David Schoen saying that the denial of due process is a result of the Dems' 4-year-long desire for impeachment. That's why they're doing it all over again. Listen to this one.
The denial of due process in this case, of course, starts with the House of Representatives. In this unprecedented snap impeachment process, the House of Representatives denied every attribute of fundamental constitutional due process that Americans correctly have come to believe is part of what makes this country so great. How and why did that happen? It is a function of the insatiable lust for impeachment in the House for the past 4 years.
What you just heard from Donald Trump's lawyer sums up today's podcast. This is nothing but a phony, divisive impeachment show trial that will do nothing more than further divide this great nation.
Home of borders, language, culture, the Savage Nation.
Let's talk about the impeachment presentation that the condemning Democrats have put together. They're excellent and perfect at propaganda. They and Leni Riefenstahl, who worked for Adolf Hitler, are one and the same. This was a pure propaganda film put together by the movie industry for the evil Democrats. There was not one video, not one picture in all that video that showed Donald Trump egging them on to go hurt anybody. Not one. And yet the implication was that he was standing there egging them on to go hurt somebody. This is a frame-up. It's a disgrace. These people should be ashamed, but they have no shame, and we have to live with this. That is the real problem. And I really have nothing more to say about this. It's a show trial. It's propaganda. It is something on the order of what Leni Riefenstahl did for Adolf Hitler in The Triumph of the Will. It's sickening to live through all of this. This is the Savage Nation podcast. We're living through terrible times, which is why I've turned back to prayer. There's almost nowhere else to go. But I'm going to do a little bit more news for you right now, because there's a lot more news out there other than the phony impeachment show trial. And I think most of you know that if you're listening to the news at all. The Biden administration, how are they doing on illegal immigrants? They're welcoming them in by the ton. They opened another tent city to detain illegal immigrants. Another tent city, but they don't call it a tent city. Do you know what they're calling it, these propagandists? Quote, soft-sided facility, unquote. I'm not making this up. They opened another tent city just like Donald Trump had to open up for the hordes coming in. So they opened it up and they call it a soft-sided facility. The Biden administration is going to open another overflow facility for 700 illegal alien migrant children from Honduras. Isn't that nice? A Honduran migrant traveling to the U.S. says Biden is going to help all of us. Can you believe this country with all the unemployment? Can you believe with all the COVID fear they're ushering them in to this nation? This is total insanity. by the most inept, corrupt administration in the history of this country. Now, let me ask you something. We all have compassion for the downtrodden and the poor. But don't we have our own? How are we going to take care of illegal immigrants who have no education, no job skills, no one here to support them but the moronic American taxpayer? And how many of them are carrying diseases? Would you know? Or is that racist to even ask? I rest my case. Is there any good news out there? Well, there is some silver lining in all the news out there. Larry Flynt died. It was like the devil died. It was like Satan himself finally died. Satan, Larry Flynt, who put pornography in everybody's household. Larry Flynt finally died. The only good news. And Fauci hasn't shut his mouth yet. How many masks will it take on his face to finally shut him up? You know, now he's telling us when COVID vaccines will be available to everyone, according to Dr. Fraudy. Oh, my God. 4 in 10, according to a survey, 4 in 10 Republicans are saying violence may be necessary to save this country. Now, I didn't make that up. 4 in 10 Republicans say political violence may be necessary. That's according to an NPR report. And who do they show in the picture on NPR? Who? Evangelical supporters at the King Jesus International Ministry Church. Many of them Hispanics. Now, this is NPR now. 3 in 10 Americans, including 39% of Republicans, agreed that, quote, if elected leaders will not protect America, the people must do it themselves, even if it requires violent actions. Now, this was done by the American Enterprise Institute. Why is there such a rush to bring in illegal aliens into this country when the country is broken and broke? Tell me why. This is terrible. 40% of Republicans say that it's violence that's necessary in some cases when the government itself won't protect us. Well, now they're blaming white evangelicals. They say majorities of white mainline Protestants, black Protestants, Catholics, followers of non-Christian religions, and the religiously unaffiliated all viewed Biden's victory as legitimate. Really? But then they say that the white evangelicals were especially prone to subscribe to the QAnon movement's conspiracy theories. Yeah, that's interesting. So now they're trying to target white evangelicals. Are you surprised by this? Are you surprised that the communists are now painting a target on white evangelicals? How many years have I, Michael Savage, stood here in front of a microphone or sat here in front of a microphone and screamed from rooftops for 25 or 26 years that the demonic left is out to get the white, heterosexual, Christian male. And that is why they took down Donald Trump. No other reason. He epitomizes everything that stands in their way of a total and absolute breakdown to turn us into the fall of the Roman Empire. That's quite a survey. Now, what else is in the news? Again, I want to just go back to the trial video put together by the Leni Riefenstahl crowd amongst the Democrats, which tried to frame Donald Trump. It was right out of Hitler's Germany, the triumph of the will. Now, there's more in the news, much more in the news. Proud Boy now blames the president for the riots. Well, okay, they got him, and they got him to turn. Proud Boy's member says Trump to blame for inciting Capitol riot. He was charged for his role in the riot at the U.S. Capitol, and he claims he was, quote, misled by the president's deception. Well, that's called turning a witness. Dominic Pizzola, a lawyer for the Proud Boy, Dominic Pizzola, filed a memo in federal court in Washington on Wednesday, making an argument Democrats have stressed repeatedly in the impeachment proceeding that the riot was the culmination of weeks of conspiracies and misinformation spread by the president to overturn the election results. So the lawyer for one of the Proud Boys, Dominic Pizzola, came up with this, that Trump did it. The lawyer is who? Jonathan Zucker. According to the filing by lawyer Jonathan Zucker, quote, defendant did not act out of criminal intent but out of conscience, albeit a frighteningly confused and distorted sense of conscience. You know, I have things I like to say about Jonathan Zucker, the lawyer, but I'll let it hang in the air. What else is in the news? Well, let's finalize today because I don't want to blow a gut today or blow a vein or blow an artery. Let's go to michaelsavage.com. Can you be happy in a sad world? That was the podcast from the other day with the happy and sad faces. Everyone loved that one. It was a very big hit. Headline story, flashback, Democrat impeachment manager tried to overturn 2016 election of Trump. Meanwhile, in Oakland, California, there was an epidemic of elderly Asian men and in the Chinatown of Oakland being thrown to the street, some 91 years old. And the people were so outraged that the police were standing down because of the mayor, the Oakland communist mayor, did nothing. And so they finally got a new police chief who stood up and told the Chinatown residents that they found the perpetrator. And who was it? Yahya Muslim. That's his name. Yahya Muslim. He was arrested and he's in the Santa Rita jail. There was a skyrocketing number of hate crimes against Asian Americans. They were ignored and excused by the liberals in Oakland, California. If you watch the videos, 20 of them are old Asian men and women, some 85, 90 years old. They're knocked to the ground for fun by roving animals. But you can't say that, I guess. Let's call them misunderstood humans, downtrodden humans, misplaced humans. Call them whatever you want. Meanwhile, in the NBA, Mark Cuban said no national anthem. Well, the NBA overruled Mark Cuban, who owns a team, and is requiring teams to play the national anthem. You know what I say? Anyone who watches the NBA or goes to the National Felons League, I don't want you to listen to my show. You're not welcome here. If you're so stupid that you want to support these anti-American mutts, please don't listen to this podcast. Meanwhile, in the cancel movement, you're not going to believe this one. A new app allows users to block 800 New York Times journalists on Twitter to, quote, fight against disinformation. We are living in a meltdown of the United States of America. A meltdown. You got Lenny Riefenstahl working for Joe Biden and the Democrats putting together a hit piece on Donald Trump, making believe he egged on the crowd, which he did not do. You got a cancel culture where anyone who speaks out against anything of the left is immediately called a racist or a sexist or a homophobe and canceled. There's so much bad stuff out there, which is why it's very difficult for me to do the news for you on the show because I get agitated. I take it very personally. And I don't want to get agitated. I don't want to agitate you. Let me wrap this up to conclude by proving to you that liberalism is a mental disorder, which is the title of my book published in 2006, because this one proves it in a way I could never do it. Left-wing Atlantic magazine writer compares covering Trump to storming Omaha Beach on D-Day. I'm not making this up. Left-wing Yahoo national correspondent, so-called, Alexander Nazarian, compared covering the Trump administration to being on Omaha Beach for the D-Day invasion in the magazine The Atlantic. Listen to what this psychopath wrote. Quote, covering the administration was thrilling for many journalists in the way that I imagine storming Omaha Beach must have been for a 20-year-old fresh from the plains of Kansas, Nazarian wrote. He hadn't signed up for battle, but there he was, liberating France. This is a correspondent for Yahoo News, covering the Trump administration to a soldier landing on Omaha Beach to face machine guns and bombs from the Nazis in the cliffs above. This is what passes for journalism today. Ladies and gentlemen of the Savage Nation, when I wrote liberalism in a mental disorder, some of you thought it was sarcastic. I'm sorry to tell you, it was not sarcasm. Liberalism is a very serious and destructive mental disorder that is totally destroying this nation. This is what has happened to the once really substantial magazine, The Atlantic. Deriding soldiers on D-Day and comparing them to loser so-called writers for left-wing magazines. This Yahoo writer is well known for his political views. In 2016, while writing for so-called Newsweek, he compared Ted Cruz supporters in Iowa to Nazis. Yahoo brought Nazarian on as a national correspondent in 2018. You hear? Combat on Omaha Beach compared to covering Trump. This is covered by Yahoo. The left thinks that they just saved the world. Did they really just save the world by giving us Biden and flooding America with illegal aliens and corrupt Biden family members? I'll let you decide. I'm going to make one last statement. Within 1 year, if not less, if it hasn't happened already, there's going to be voter remorse in this country. Tremendous voter remorse. And a tremendous percentage of those of you who voted for Biden or family members who voted for Biden will be wishing to God that they had voted for Donald Trump.
Fans of the spoken word, welcome. This is a podcast. Greetings, pod recipients. You are entering the Savage Nation. Read the book, see the movie.
Well, today we're talking about the phony, divisive impeachment show trial. And covering that on a daily basis for the newspaper of the Washington Times is my friend and columnist Jennifer Harper. We spoke about this sham of a trial and what effects it may have upon the voters in America during the midterm elections. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time out to be with us, Savage Nation podcast. What a sad time to see such a disgrace going on in our nation, Jennifer. I mean, I don't want to editorialize in advance of your appearance, but I just said on Twitter, impeaching Dems are the same evil prosecutors who framed the innocent in courts. They would have indicted George Washington for insurrection against the British. I'm sure you can agree. And some of this is madness. It's the most phony impeachment show trial that I've ever seen since Stalin's time. The only good news to me is that the average person can see right through this. And I believe Schumer and Pelosi and company are actually impeaching themselves with this Stalinist show trial. What do you think?
Well, I certainly think that there's a lot of risks involved with something that truly is available to the American public. Of course, all the cable news channels are covering this, as well as C-SPAN. They, broadcast this stuff without commentary, which is very helpful. But I think also, Michael, we have to remember that an event like this is really expensive. And I think when the American public get wind of how much these things cost, they're going to think differently of it. It will become more than political theater. And I'll tell you why. The last impeachment of President Trump cost $16 million. And back in the days of President Clinton, they were up around $30 million. So that's one thing to keep in.
Well, think of how many poor immigrants could be fed with the money and clothed with the money, and how the elderly they care so much about could be helped with the money. I wonder what Pelosi would say to that, Jennifer. But what about Trump's legal team? I mean, many people are saying they cannot believe how inept some of them are. Did you see that performance, Jennifer, of the individual who seems to have dropped the ball? What do you think of that?
Well, I think I'm watching it on and off. I'm not glued to it because I do write a column every day, and just as you and lots of other people do things during the day, I check in on it. And to me, these kind of things tend to be disposable. They go away. People can't remember all of these things. So I'm not sure how the lawyers are going to come out in the long run with this particular thing. But indeed, lots and lots of people are calling this political theater, and bad political theater as well.
We're speaking with Jennifer Harper of the Washington Chimes, I almost said, of the great Washington Times newspaper. And Jennifer and I have had an on-air conversation for years, off and on the radio. Jennifer, the big question here is two things, really. We may see this for what it is, but what about the 74 million people who voted for President Trump, number one? And do you think the Democrats will pay a political price for this, or will it be forgotten by the midterm elections?
No, I don't think it will be forgotten by the midterm elections, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of people that are looking at what the outcome of this particular political event will be, and the outcome is not very good. And here, I want to give you some poll numbers, Mike, and our listeners to consider here. They're very significant. This is coming from the Monmouth University poll. This is an academic poll. They don't have a big agenda. And here's what they say. After all of these political events happen, only 10% of the public has a great deal of trust and confidence in the American people as a whole when it comes to making judgments under our democratic system about the issues facing our country. A majority of American public, 52%, expresses a great deal of concern that the country would suffer lasting damage if people who hold core political principles different from their own were able to enact their policy. What they're saying there is that all of the political divisions are beginning to filter down to the everyday guy. This is a poll of American voters, American people. And it really, it distressed me. I look at polls every day as you do, as a lot of our listeners do. And this thing is saying that all of this political theater, all of this strife, all of this partisan discord that goes on and on and on, it's beginning to get to people. And that is what is troubling me. And another thing that's entering in on this, Michael, is that there are a good amount of people who would still like to see President Trump found his third party. What do you think of that?
Wait, let's not go over that. A good percentage of the people would like to see Trump start a third party. According to the Monmouth poll?
No, we're going to go to another poll now. I should have a guide here. This is coming from Hill TV and Harris X. That's the Hill. That's the publication on the Hill.
Well, the Hill is a very, by the way, liberal organization. And and they're saying most people want to see Trump start a third party?
Well, here we go with some more numbers, because whenever you have a murky situation like this, Michael, as you know, and our listeners probably know, you have to go to some of the numbers. And here is what their poll has to say. Two-thirds of Republican voters, 64%, say they would join a new party led by Mr. Trump. This is according to a new Hill-Harris X poll. It also revealed that 37% of U.S. voters overall, that's all voters, would be interested in this third party, along with 28% of independents and even 15% of Democrats.
So we're all fed up with the corrupt two-party system in plain English. Right. What I'm hearing is we all know both, quote, parties are having a party at our expense.
Something like that.
In plain English, they're just having a party at our expense. They don't represent the people in almost any way, and we're fed up with both parties. But, again, look at Schumer and Pelosi. What are they going to gain by this? With spending millions of dollars, dividing the nation, making people very angry. You talk about violence. The violence they're inflicting upon the country right now is immeasurable. And what about, Jennifer, what about the small businesses that were burned down all across the country this last spring by the Democrats supporting Antifa and Black Lives Matter? Where was Pelosi and Schumer then? Where was Andy Cooper with the fake glasses then?
Well, that's certainly a mystery, and it's been brought up before, because there have been a lot of people citing when, as we go forward, in the fact-finding part about President Trump and the comments he made and the possible influence of that down at the other end of the mall. This has already come up with people saying, haven't Democrats said incendiary language like this as well? And this is going to take a long time, Michael, to work out. And it's up to, again, when you're in a murky situation, go to the polls, go to the numbers and take a peek at what you're seeing there. And I think also it's good incentive to revisit history, revisit previous years where Republicans were at the receiving end of such unpleasantness, for example, when they were at a restaurant with their families. So that's something to remember, too. It should inspire people to remember what came before, because...
Yeah, but the left would say nobody died. It was just words. Okay, that's what their answer to that is. And there was no real threat to their lives. But the fact of the matter is there's real damage in Portland, Seattle, and Pelosi and Schumer were silent while it was going on, Jennifer. In fact, they were egging them on. Pelosi gave speeches years ago at UC Berkeley, right across the bay from me, saying, I'm a disruptor. Go out there when you graduate and become disruptors. Remember that, Jennifer? That famous speech, the disruptor speech?
Yeah.
And what about Maxine Waters, that jackal, telling everybody, when you see Republicans in the filling station or in a restaurant, go up to them and get in their face. What was that? Was that not violence?
I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, Michael, to be candid with you, these are all very disturbing, not only to me, but to other people, I think. But your point about getting to what was said, when was said, and who said it, being a good reporter is really paramount here. But on the other hand, too, the American public only has so much capacity to witness all of this partisan discord. And that's something that troubles me a great deal. I don't like to see people become disengaged. I don't like, particularly when the midterm elections will be here before we know it. I mean, the minute one election stops, the campaign for the next election begins again. And I think it's really, it just bears close examination, almost scientific examination, because it's so emotionally charged. But please, everybody, remember, the American public is watching this. They're the ones that we should really be caring about.
What about Joe Biden before you go, Jennifer Harper? Joe Biden, where is he on all of this? Do we have any idea? Is he for this or against it?
I'm writing about this for my next column. Mr. Biden is not even watching the proceedings at all.
How do we know? Is that a known fact?
This is a known fact. Reporters asked him asked Jen Psaki, White House press secretary, is Mr. Biden watching this? And she said, absolutely not. He's not watching this. He has other things to do. He's working for the American people, that kind of thing. So I don't know what the message there is, but he's definitely, they were adamant about saying he was not watching the proceedings.
So wait a minute. So his press secretary, by saying that, and of course we have no way to know the veracity of the statement, is saying he's not involved in this. She's sort of distancing Biden from this fiasco because maybe internally they know that they made a mistake. They planned it, they plotted it, they produced it, and then when the time came, they said, we really made a mistake. We better separate President Biden from these Democrats who are pursuing this. That's a possibility. Yeah. I think internally, I have very good instincts about what the people think, and I'll go back to what I tweeted, Jennifer, and I think you agree with me. Dim-witted Dems impeach themselves with Stalinist show trial, and I think it will backfire on them in the midterm elections. At least I pray it will. I hope people have a long enough memory to see how evil, vindictive, and damn spiteful these people can be. Jennifer Harper, Washington Times columnist extraordinaire, thanks for being with us on the Savage Nation podcast.
Always my pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Love your columns.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.
Well, thanks for listening. History will see this impeachment as the biggest political blunder in history. We did Coffee and News of the Day. I spoke to a mystic about losing my faith in God, and as a result, I went back to God. I read a simple prayer to remind us about connecting head, heart, and hands to work as one for God each day. It's helped me enormously. I needed this at a time of faithlessness, especially the faithlessness in this system right now. I have no faith in this system under the gangsters that are running it. Today I talked about what the Dems are doing to Trump mirrors what the Romans did to Tiberius, a populist Roman politician who was killed by the ancient Roman swamp when he challenged them. We use Sound of the Day, where CNN compares the Capitol riot to Rwandan genocide, and that the impeachment manager's so-called film is similar to the propaganda of Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. Well, thank you very much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed and learned something from it. And I want to remind you of something that I think is important for you to know. We have over 280 Savage Nation podcast episodes available to you absolutely free. I'll say that again. You can go back into this vast library of over 280 episodes and listen to any one of them or several of them at your leisure, so you never have to be without the Savage Nation. Thank you very much for listening.
Cards for Kids. KARS Cards for Kids. 1-877 Cards for Kids. Donate your card today.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
To learn more about our programs and to donate, go to cardsforkids.com. That's cards with a K. Pickup is quick and easy. You'll also get a vacation voucher and maximum tax deduction.
1-877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1-877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Also accepting boats, motorcycles, RVs, and real estate donations.